I am Holly Celiano, and I have my guest on today, Mayhem Mel, or Mel Mayhem, I should say. Welcome.
Well, welcome to you, everybody. And thank you so much to the beautiful Holly for inviting me along today. This is actually my very first formal interview, by the way, just so you know, Holly. So I feel very, very honoured and privileged to be here on my first appearance with
Well,
you. So
thank you.
thank you very much. That's quite okay. So I
So
guess
I know
everyone.
you have a wealth of information. You, we were talking prior to hitting record of information that's going on that you can share what you're allowed to share. And I will turn it over to you and feel free to share what you want to share about what's going on.
Well, thank you so much, Holly. I guess it's at the point where everyone's sort of waiting for the RV and what's required, and we saw the hype of ISO 222, and then we sort of like fell into that little nothing else happened again. But
Right.
as you and I both know, Holly, there is so much going on in the background, and this is all about the fundamentals. And of course, we've been following this for so many years that basically from about, I think about 2012, I really started to see some implementations of this new quantum system coming into play. And as it sort of came into play, of course, then DJT came in, so that boosted our energies into the belief that this was actually going to happen. And of course, we went through those 4 years, and then we had the 4 year lull, so to speak. And then, of course, then he comes back again. And we're at that point, we always come towards that Christmas time, don't we? And we sort of like, is it this Christmas? And so I think it's sort of like, it's for me, the exciting part is over my journey, as I was just saying to you, Holly, is that when I focused on the fundamentals, that kept me excited.
Right.
It kept me going because it wasn't about dates or rates and things like that as well. It was like, oh, wow, we're moving one step ahead, and another step ahead. And it was like we were doing these steps up to the heavens, so to speak. And it will be heavenly, it will be biblical once this was all released. And so looking forward to more fundamentals. Boy, have we had an amazing, amazing week this week. There has been so much going on. We've seen governments resigning, which is part of the Gesara as well. So we saw Bulgaria, a few other countries where their government has been resigned due to political upheaval. And that is part of the reset, so to speak. It's resetting the government and the countries to be able to go into it. And so I thought I would start with a little bit of background on what is required for the RV to actually occur. Because as I said, our emotions are running high with Christmas and all things, holy and what have you. So I thought, let's look at this in a fundamentals, and you're going to get very, very excited, ladies and gentlemen. So let's look at the full reserves banking. What does that actually mean? We all talk about on my show quite often about the reserves in the central banks. And it's come to note that due to the implementation since 2012, we started seeing things like Basel 3, Basel 3.1, Basel 3.2 come into play. And what does that mean? It means that the banks, including the central banks, have to hold a portion of up to 60 to 80%, depending on your country and other factors. But let's say 60% has to be held inside of that banking system to support a brand new currency, which is now going to be pegged through blockchain. So these full reserves banking is basically indicating why we talk about central banks. They are just an umbrella for the new system. It takes away the power of what they were before because of the blockchain. So the reserves will be linked through blockchain. and utilizing that stability of the gold and silver. We just saw a big article come out about JP Morgan and the silver hoarding, so to speak. And just to remind everyone too that, of course, silver was the backing of the gold standard back in the day. And if we were to go back and further in history, when the very first Olympics occurred, silver was number one. So if you came first, you actually received silver.
I did not know that.
There you go. So silver was like the number one. And of course, and then they introduced gold and what have you, but because it was more glamorous looking and what have you. But back in the very first, if you came first, you actually got silver.
Wow.
So a little bit of traditional history there. But so we look at what the banks and the central banks are holding. So this is the full reserve banking that we call, and stabilising the country. So that gives the country stability. Not only does the country have to be stable in the banks, but that's why I was mentioning about the governments being resigning and the corruption. Sometimes in some countries we have to eliminate the whole government to reset into the new governance. So we're moving in this transition period as well for stability, and we saw it many years ago when we saw, just to remind people, I think it was the Lebanese when they had the so-called fireworks factory on the port exploded. Well, whilst that was actually going on, that was actually the resigning of the Lebanese government. That was the cover story for the Lebanese government. So if you were to line up the resignation of that country, because it was so unstable and there was so much corruption, they utilised that bombing, so to speak, that incident, to cover the story behind it was that resigned the whole government. So we're starting to see this, and as I said, this week, I think I've seen about 4 or 5 countries, their governments have resigned. That's to create stability in the country. So the country has the gold reserves, which we're seeing quite a lot of, and then we see the stability. So taking away the government or the corruption, it is a great, exciting time to be alive, because that then introduces us then to the platforms that they need to do their trading with as well. So I often talk about how important the trades are between countries, and that sometimes the trading is also to do with bartering. So we saw this especially in countries such as Egypt and Africa and South Africa, where they actually do barter trades. And they were trading between countries without using the currency, because the currency wasn't stable. And they wanted to depeg from the US dollar, so they barter traded. So there was a lot of barter trades there for quite some time. People, tend to forget. So that's been going on in the background. That's creating stability in countries as well. So if you're seeing me talking about trade settlements and things like that as well, it's the trade settlements on the actual blockchain that is supporting, of course, the quantum system. That's very important, because when they're trading in their own currency, and this also ties in with the tariffs as well. So I'll go into a little bit more about the tariffs and that in a short minute, but that's what this trading is. It's to actually keep the resources and the rare earth minerals in the country to support the currency. Because if the currency is going to be supported by their commodities, it needs to stay in the country. So the tariffs were always put out there to reduce that so as they stay within the country. And it was very interesting. A member sent me an article regarding Italy. And I actually said that the EU will be dismantled, so to speak, and each country will go back to its original currency. So that was perfect timing, because I'd been talking about this, like I said earlier, for quite some time, and now these things are starting to come into fruition. So they're great reminders for myself to remind all of you who, especially if they haven't followed me before, that I've been talking about this for many years and now it's starting to occur. So the other things that we need to remind ourselves of in the RV requirements is, of course, the IMF is connected to the World Bank, but they are working alongside BRICS. So that's a very good indicator. And the BRICS payment system, of course, is the implementation of the quantum system to the level playing field, one-to-one parallel. We saw many articles this week talking about the parallel alignment, which is the one-to-one alignment, especially with the release, of course, of the RLUSD and Ripple getting their banking license and things like that as well. So it all starts to connect in together. So the IMF and, of course, the World Trade Organization, of course, we've been seeing this through the Iraqi news, but we're also starting to see that now in other countries. I think Indonesia just came out just the other day, and Vietnam. We're talking about the World Trade Organization. So we looked at Iraq for many, many years and used that as the guidelines to the currency reset. And now we're seeing countries such as Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, and all of these are now coming out in articles that we've seen. But there's one very special one I'd like to bring up, actually, Holly, and that's Iran, the quiet country. And why was it always sanctioned and things like that as well is because they never played the game with the US dollar. They held their own, and that's why they were always punished, I guess, from the US and things like that as well, is because they didn't play the game and they stood strong. So very interesting. We'll go into that in a short minute as well. But these are the things that we need to keep an eye on before the RV actually occurs. There's also operational banking, as I said, the ISO 222 messaging system. That's come into play. That's already there. We're seeing debt restructuring, which is all your Doge. We're seeing many things in different countries talking about sovereign wealth funds and that as well. And this is the Doge in each of those countries. So understand in the US, we saw the Doge. We have Doge in Australia as well. But other countries may use different acronyms or names, that being, as I said, sovereignty wealth funds. They are all to do with those funds being released for the RV to happen. So then that leads into, of course, the news that came out just a short while ago, where I found out that the Native American settlements in the US, there's a lot of whispers about that coming out. Well, that's part of the Tier 3. And if they're talking about that, then they must be pretty close to having the Tier 1 and Tier 2, rolling out as we go. So in America, it's the Native American settlements, but in other countries, as I said, it could be called a sovereign wealth fund, but these must be released first. And so we need to recognise these opportunities, that we need to hold back our emotions and focus on that fundamentals so as we don't get solely attached to these dates and things like that as well. So if you're in your country and you're seeing sovereign wealth fund or Native American settlements, then you know that things are definitely starting to move and move fairly fast through all of that. So these payouts, as I said, explaining again, it comes out from the asset-backed corrections. So once the corrections are done on the blockchain, then the currencies will be revalued or reinstated, or they will have what they call a near value attached to those as well. This has also got to do with land valuations. Now, here's a very interesting one. I have a newsletter that came through from the International Valuation Securities Commission. So this overrides the SEC and all the other security. And they're talking about the revaluation of real estate and jewellery just in this last month. So that's also a huge indicator. we've often gone through this journey, those of us who have been around for a while. I've talked a lot about the 1955 prices and things like that as well. And I often wondered, how's that going to happen? So the land valuations that they're talking about in the International Valuation Committee is very, very interesting because this is land valuations will adjust mortgages and things like that as well. So again, I think there's going to be a transitional period where these things will start to roll out, and then we'll see land valuations changed because, as I said, your mortgages actually are valued, aren't they, against land or other assets. So these are what we call corrections. So they'll have corrections made and then the mortgages and that. So I think Gesara, everyone always says it's going to happen like that. I think it's going to be rolled out slowly as these transitions occur in that sector. So that was a very interesting article about land valuations and asset-backed corrections. It also talks a little bit about royalties and revenues, and this is where the tariffs and that come into play. So here in Australia, in the mining sector, and we're talking a lot about rare earth minerals, and of course, there's royalties attached to those, and sometimes they're called tariffs. So the royalties, of course, will also be able to support these payouts or these releases as well to the Native American settlements and the sovereign funds, and eventually it will be given back to the people in certain ways. But that's how they actually fund also the funding to all these settlements that are going on in the background. That includes your fines and penalties and things like that as well. So, because often people hear of these things and go, well, where does this money come from? Well, the money comes from, as I said, land valuations and asset corrections once the gold has increased even a little bit more and silver will catch up, then there will be corrections and they will make adjustments according to how much they actually hold in their bank. So then it goes back full circle to where we started from before. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense anyway.
No, that was a great explanation. You really have done a great job of knitting it all together for somebody that's seasoned in this and somebody that's a beginner. They'll be able to understand what's going on in the world. So thank you.
That's okay. I think the biggest news, though, that I got goosebumps was just yesterday, and there was a huge article that I just wanted to touch on, if I may, and that was from the DTCC, and this is the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation in the United States. Now, it's also connected to New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Sydney.
Hmm.
So there's your five pillars, ladies and gentlemen. You often hear me talking about five pillars. So this is your market infrastructure. So post any kind of trades that occur, go through the DTCC, and this is your new global financial services. Now they've been talking about for quite some time about their new platform. So they've just received a letter though from the SEC. And again, as I said, the international revaluation is also overrides the SEC as well. But the SEC came out and said they don't have any arguments about them going or moving forward. That's a green light. That is a green light for go, ladies and gentlemen. Get excited because this is to actually revalue those assets that we were just talking about just a short time ago. So this allows the depository trust because everything's held in trust now. We talk about trusts when we move forward with our actual redemption as well and how to protect ourselves with trusts and things like that. So this depository trust is a deposit of the gold that is held within those banks. And this is the green light for them to actually tokenize on that blockchain so as they can establish that infrastructure for the revaluation of our currencies. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very big green light for all of us to get very, very excited about. You don't have to understand a lot of it, but understand the real world assets. These are the assets, as I said, that are going to back the currencies during this currency reset. And of course, that rolls out in the second half of 2026. So don't be disheartened by that roadmap. It's just a roadmap. And as we saw during the transition of Basel III and things like that as well, we all thought that all banks were going to collapse.
Right.
Has that happened? No, it hasn't, because they all were going through a transition. So things can still happen, but the full rollout will be finalised in the first half of 2026. So we still have a lot of exciting things to happen yet. So this is also the new digital age, and of course, a full potential of the blockchain. So this is going to really show all of us the full potential of the importance of blockchain and the DeFi and things like that as well. So that then sort of like got me excited as well, because we talked about central bank digital currencies and central banking digital currencies for many, many years. And the difference between the centralized or the central bank and the decentralized system, which is the blockchain in the quantum system. So what was to be was centralized, and we are now decentralized. And that's where we also hear a lot about this DeFi. It's decentralized finance. So that's also one of those acronyms that you're going to start hearing and seeing a lot more about as we come closer to the transition of them so-called flipping the switch, so to speak. So that's where we're sort of sitting with that. But that was huge news. I was so excited to get that news yesterday, and I thought, oh, I get to share that with the world, because that is a green light for go. That's one of those big green lights we have been waiting for a very long time. So that was very, very, that was big news. I was very excited about that. So, but yeah,
It
so
is very exciting. And when you break it down step by step of what needs to happen, no wonder why it's taking time. It's not something, everybody thinks it's just a flip of the switch and we're reset and that's it. No, there is a major underbelly inside of this machine that there is systematic step by step to go from traditional banking finance into the decentralized finance onto the blockchain. It's not something that can just be done, and I've talked about this before, really quickly, because they've been doing it so slowly. So there is not a disruption in the entire world economy. It has to be done so seamlessly, you don't even know that we're switching over. And then there's all these, pieces coming in, like this piece you just talked about, that is huge. Now, did we know that needed to take place? No. But we find out, oh, well, this needed to happen for the next step. We always find out afterwards, they never tell us beforehand, the thousands of steps that needs to happen. We find out as it's happening and what needs to take place.
yeah, and that's a great reminder too, because I remember the saying that came out when the military came out one time, and they said this will be a smooth transition, ladies and gentlemen, a very smooth transition, and I think it will be. We know, as I said, the clearing houses were used as the platform to incorporate from your Federal Reserve into your US Treasury, and the same in other countries as well. They created bridges to make it a smooth transition. So the bridge was broken. There was no bridges to bridge these from one to the other. And it was taking the fiat from the Federal Reserve, and we often talk about the gold will, you know, the Fed will go because of the gold. And then, of course, then it's transferred into the Treasury. Well, Treasury is gold, isn't it? When you think of treasure, the hidden treasure in the oceans, it's always the gold, the silver, the brass, the copper. The treasure is where the treasury is. That's where that gold is actually thing. They're just using the bridge between the Federal Reserve into the Treasury, and they're using that clearinghouse platform. And that's why that DTCC is also very important, is because they're talking about utilising the clearinghouse, and that's what I've been talking about for quite some time, for many, many years. And that's that bridge, that gap, to convert that from the fiat into the gold. And of course, the gold will destroy the Fed. So that is your smooth transition. Does the Fed go away completely? As I said, eventually it will. But during this transition, I think the umbrella of the Federal Reserve will remain. The building is still there, but no one is home. We already know that. But so that's why that is so, so important to understand. So it was an interesting, because the Curvature Securities noted that the pace of the buying of the gold is greater than the mortgage bonds that are held by the Fed as well. So I think this is, again, that transition of the Fed being exposed, in the sense that although there's gold there, the gold will destroy, and those mortgages will be then released from that fiat into the gold backed, and then they will have those adjustments in the system. Hence, Gesara will then occur shortly after, or simultaneously.
Right.
So that's the background of how Gesara will actually work, is the mortgages and the gold. So
Right. I love how you spoke about smooth transition, because Trump always said it would be a smooth transition of power. A lot of people thought, well, that would just be the government, a smooth transition of power from the government. No, 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 no. Well, that is one piece of it, but it's a smooth transition of power in the financial sector, because that's the biggest thing that they are restructuring, along with all the governments, along with the bad military that's being cleaned out, along with all the bad corporations. And everything is getting restructured, and it has been a smooth transition all across the board.
Oh, for sure. And we all thought it was going to be, all the hoo-ha, but it hasn't been that way at
No.
all. We've created a lot in our own mind. I think our expectations of what we thought we knew was going to happen hasn't happened. So then we get disheartened.
Yes.
And yet, if we see and look at and start to gain more knowledge about how the structure is restructuring, and it's the same as what I said about the IMF and the World Bank working alongside of BRICS. BRICS owns it. BRICS is running the IMF and the World Bank right now. Understand that. It's the same with the World Economic Forum. We saw, as BRICS was starting to form and the de-dollarization was occurring because of BRICS, we started to see implementations of the International Forum, the Western Forum, the Eastern Forum. This is the destruction of the old World Economic Forum. And we often have to remind ourselves as well that a lot of these things are done because DJT did say to us many years ago, he is a businessman. He'll take a whole hotel and he will restructure it, but it'll be a new hotel. So he's utilising the umbrella of the World Economic Forum, restructuring it, and then he can demolish it. That's the exciting part about this, is that you're restructuring a hotel, but you're making it anew in the guts of it. So he's taken the guts out of the hotel, restructuring it, and then you can dismantle the rest. And that's what he's doing. He's a businessman. He's going to utilise that. And it's like we go through this transition period, and people often talked about, the taxes and the income taxes. Well, just a reminder, DJT always said he did pay his taxes and he did them legally. He worked within the system, but found flaws in the system, but done it legally. And that's what we need to be focusing on, not the fact that there is not going to be taxes. That's correct. But whilst we're going through this transition, it's still important to do everything legally so as you go through the system and then destruct the system. But whilst you're restructuring, you still have to follow the system. And that's what he was showing us, that we need to become more business minded. And that's why it's so important to remember the restructuring, the destruction, and the smooth transition all goes hand in hand. And that's, a really good reminder that whilst we all look at the World Economic Forum as bad, 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 it was actually being restructured through bricks. We just didn't see it.
Right.
I mean, I saw it, but we didn't understand that that was the destruction or the restructure of the World Economic Forum. Those funds were then transferred, and we saw a lot of good things actually came out of the World Economic Forum. Again, we don't see that because we're so focused on they were bad. They actually came out, as I said, their funds were restructured, and they have been doing some amazing work under the banner of the World Economic Forum. So we have to see the good in the restructure. It's not everything is bad. It's a restructure and a transition. And of course, none of us like going through a transition, do we? None of us like too much change because we've been so conditioned on how we do our banking and things like that as well. So I think it's a reminder to have an open mind and an open heart as we continue to go through these changes, and allow to see the positive in everything, because it's not all bad. So the restructure of this economic system has been amazing. I've had a great time enjoying it.
As the world has been restructured and all these different organizations are restructured, those of us that have waited so long for this, I've mentioned this before, we are being restructured. We are not even the same person we were when we started on this journey, because we've been having our eyes so wide open to the fraud and the debt slaves that we were, that we didn't even know we were, and all the different ways that they have tried to poison us and kill us and take from us. Those of us that have dug so deep into this have gone so far in that rabbit hole. It's made us a different person. By the time we come out on the other side, we are completely different and changed. So that I just spoke about this the other day. When we have this wealth, we are good stewards of this wealth, because I believe those of us that are involved, we had to go through so much internal changes to be able to handle what's coming.
Absolutely. And I've often talked about this in some groups, that it's not just a currency revaluation, it's a revaluation of us
Yeah.
as well. And for me, it's a revaluation of, ourselves and our beliefs, our frequencies, our ascension. It's a whole combination. It's not just about the currencies. And a currency exchange is, as I said, it doesn't have to be financial. It's also an energy exchange or a frequency that we share with what we do and how we portray and ourselves and moving forward. And this is why we are a humanitarian, is because we get to share that currency. Current is movement of electricity or electrical current, so to speak. So it's been an absolute amazing journey. And there's just, I still got another 5 pages I haven't even touched on, Holly, that, that we could talk about for hours. And, but there is so much going on. And as I said, stay very focused on the fundamentals, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what's going to get you through. And so we'll see what happens. But there's in the currency sector, even, I'm looking at this page and we're talking about Modi's going over to Jordan, Ethiopia, and Oman. And it's like those currencies are very, very important connected to the Indian rupee. So there's so much activity going on when you understand the history of Ethiopia. Their currency, of course, is birr, which is called silver. It's actually, in translation, it's actually silver, Ethiopian birr. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many connections to the currency revaluations. And yeah, like I said, I can talk all day about currencies and currency resets. So,
Isn't
but
it interesting talking about silver, where you said it used to be the most, number
valued.
one
Yeah,
metal? And in the Olympics, that was given out that silver has been so suppressed. If it's more valuable than gold, well, let's suppress it so people really won't buy it, and let's make gold more valuable in people's minds and
yeah,
raise the price of that. And now we're seeing that silver is just going up, up, up. Their spot price, I think today it was $63.
yeah,
So you mentioned about JP Morgan. They used to, suppress that and keep it a very low rate. They can't anymore because all the central banks are buying it up. Everybody wants it. People are buying it. So you can't keep a price lower when there's such a demand. And
yeah.
it's probably been kept low because it is more valuable than gold. It's all
Exactly
an
right.
illusion. Nothing is as it seems.
It was very interesting. Just to putting one little thing aside about the currency revaluations, it's true. Everything is an illusion. And it's like when you find out the truth that they actually did land on the moon, even though we saw that they didn't, they actually did. And this is what I'm saying, the illusions of keeping us. That's another story, by the way, Holly. You should see me when I'm on a roll with all of those kind of conspiracy theories. But everything is an illusion. Everything that we thought was bad was actually good, and what we
Yep.
thought we saw was bad actually did happen. And yes, I have done so much research in the last 3 weeks. I think I have had massive downloads of so much more news. And as I said, everything ties in to the currency reset. It's just incredible. And so yeah, so I'm excited for Sizzling Sunday this week because I get to talk a little bit more, as I said, about the history of the countries and their currencies and the upcoming events that are actually going to occur. So we'll see what transpires. I think even the 22nd, there's a lot of things happening around the 22nd of December. So
Well,
either way,
go
hey,
ahead. No, go ahead.
either way, I think we're going to have a fantastic Christmas. Either way, whatever happens, ladies and gentlemen, be happy, happy, happy because there is so much to look forward to. There really, truly is things to look forward to. So, yeah,
So
so we'll see
I
what
was going to
happens.
say, with those dates in December, we have how- AIIA Atlas 31, or however you say that, that's coming back into our field. I think it's the 18th or 19th of December.
Yes.
And that is going to be shifting the energy on the planet and the people. I mean, it's just the perfect time of having that come into the field at this moment when we're going through such a restructuring. It's not coincidental. I mean,
Of
everything
course,
is everything is done, with exact precision how it's done, though it does look like nothing's being done. If you listen to gurus, it's like, oh, we just got delayed, we got delayed, we got delayed. It's never going to happen. But know that this is being done with military precision. And you just have to know and see what's being done will happen in the most godly time when it's supposed to happen.
100%. And yeah, absolutely. It is in God's timing.
It
And
is.
it has always been event driven as
Yes.
well. So this is why I thought, well, if it's event driven, let's just watch the events. Is Three Eye Atlas the sky event that we've been waiting for?
Could be.
So many prophecies have been coming out also about the AI Atlas releasing. There's a lot of people, I've had about 4 confirmations now of people visually seeing as prophecies of the unidentified flying objects, so to speak, being out on the ocean, on the actual beaches and things like that, and just sitting there. Is that the sky event? Whatever it's going to be, you know it's going to be something special
Yeah.
because it has to wake. And we are seeing a lot of people waking up, Holly, as you said. This frequency of the Three Eye Atlas, although I don't talk a lot about it because everyone else is, and I don't need to add to that as well. But what I'm saying is that frequency
Yeah.
that's coming through, those energies that are coming through, I have noticed, and I've heard a lot of people say, there's a lot of people still waking up, or resurgence of all of the protests and things like that as well. This is like going COVID 2.0 again. All the protests are going on, and it's like this new surgence of energy and frequencies and understanding. And it's like it's frustrating for some of us because we are repeating ourselves over and over again. But it's so exciting in the same sense because so many people are coming through and experiencing this change. And they don't really even understand or notice that they're changing, but I can see it and I can feel it and I can feel their energy and the frequencies of people going, oh, we're not going to put up with that anymore. And I go, oh, this is exciting.
Right.
Where were you 5, 6 years ago when this was going down, So I think, as you said, the Three Eye Atlas, and that is going to be one of those things that is going to be, up there with that energy exchange. And it's certainly going to be a beautiful shift, as I said, moving into the festive season
Right.
and things like that as well. So we got a lot to be excited about. So,
And
yeah.
a lot to be really in gratitude for, that we are awake and aware and we're witnessing this and we will be part of it. Now, if it does not happen by Christmas, as everybody's, waiting for, just know we're coming up based on how you've laid out all the steps. We're coming up to it. We're at the tail end. I mean, the final pieces are being put into place. So if everybody stops focusing on, I want it this week, I want it before Christmas, I want it, yes, people are desperate, and I'm not negating anybody that's suffering and needs this, but you can't force it to happen. And unfortunately, other people out there give you false expectations, and then you get deflated when it doesn't happen during what they're saying. Just know, though, we are coming into the end of it. We're in the end days of it, whether it, happens sometime in 2026, which I believe it's going to start rolling out into
Yes.
2026,
Yeah.
but the final pieces are coming in.
And these pieces are, like you said, the final pieces, like doing an actual jigsaw puzzle, and you've got those last 10 pieces that need to go into the puzzle, and you sort of almost trying to force them to fit, and they don't quite fit. And you have to sort of like look at them from a different perspective, and that's what we try and do on our show as well, is to give everyone a different perspective and keep everyone grounded as much as I
Right.
possibly can, because that's what's going to get you through. And I've always said that it's going to be, we have like 1 to 3% of the population have heard of the currency reset and things like that as well. But there's always been this part in my heart that says there's only going to be 1% of that 1% that's going to survive through right through to the ending of this game, because it's not going to be pleasantry in the sense if you focus on the dates and things like that as well. But if you focus and so stay grounded with the impact of what's coming, it's going to be absolutely so exciting. And yeah, so thank you so much, Holly, for the opportunity today to share some of those insights and put a few things into perspective as we head into this festive time of the year. So it's always, like I said, a very emotional time for everyone, because we always expected Christmas to be that Christmas. And I think, we're either way, it's going to be a fantastic Christmas. So
Yes. Well, I
looking
can't
forward
thank
to
you
it.
enough for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge, and you just put it together so easily for people to understand the bigger picture. So thank you. And I'd love to have you back on again because you have 5 more pages of notes. I want to know what you were going to talk
Oh,
about.
that's every show. So yeah, it's like even doing a sizzling Sunday. Sometimes it's 4 or 5, sometimes up to 10 pages. Sometimes I don't even get to talk about those 10 pages because 10 other things happen.
Right.
By the time I've got through that, it's like, oh, that's exciting. Let's talk about that. And
Right.
of course, as we have a Q and A, it's called, you just never know where it's going to go with a Q and A. But it's a great time to be alive, and it's certainly an awesome time to be a part of this journey. And as you said, it's going to be biblical. It's going to come. It is coming, ladies and gentlemen. Just stay happy, happy, happy. Stay grounded. And for all of those out there, I send my love and gratitude, especially to you, Holly, for taking the time out today to spend with me. And yeah, we look forward to catching up again very, very soon. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And have a great day, everybody. And we will be back and have Mel back on. So just just enjoy the ride. That's the best thing because it's going to be, I think it's going to be more exciting as we get further along to the tail end of this. We're going to see a lot more reveal. A lot more is going to make sense. We don't know what's in store. I heard there's a lot of things going to be coming out in December. Don't know what that is, but that's going to be exciting.
it certainly will be.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.